What's up, guys? This is your boy Benza here today, bringing you a video on my Magicka Heavy Templar. Now, I made this build for the purpose of survivability, good DPS, and good heals. So without further ado, let's get into the build. I'm running 5-piece heavy armor and 2-piece light. My 2-piece light is dedicated to the Warlock set, and I'm running 5 pieces of Warlock. I got Magicka enchants on everything except for health on my Warlock head and health on my Warlock shoulders. I got Magicka enchants on my 5-piece Seducer heavy armor, Magicka on all of them, and I do have quite a bit of gold, so I ended up using Nirn on all of my pieces as well. If you can't afford Nirn, you can always run Infused on the big pieces, Reinforced on the big pieces, and maybe Moodnos on the smaller pieces. And I guess those are the only alternatives. I strongly recommend running Nirn on your gear because it significantly increases your spell resistance and helps you gain some magic damage. So yeah, I had a 7-piece light armor build set up with my other Magicka Templar build, but this build is dedicated more to tanking rather than DPS. Both specs have more or less the same Magicka pool and same spell damage. I am running entropy on this build, so we'll have a 20% more spell damage. And my other build sacrificed the resistances you get gaining from heavy armor to have increased spell penetration and crit chance. So you're sacrificing a little bit of DPS by not running 5-piece light armor, but you gain more out of survivability. And that's what this build's really good at doing. It's really good at outlasting your opponents, tanking multiple people for a very long time, and waiting for reinforcements to turn the fight around. Unfortunately, I don't have Meteor. Otherwise, I wouldn't be running the same ults as my light armor build. This build does need more DPS, so I would sacrifice Replenishing Barrier for Meteor. So yes, 5-piece Warlock, 5-piece Seducer heavy, Nirned out. Warlock is default infused. Reduce Magicka cost on my enchants on the jewelry, and for the sword and shield we have Torx packed on my DPS bar, and the pack set for regen, stam regen on my survivability bar. So Torx pack is pretty self-explanatory. I got penetration on the sword, and Torx pack for the spell damage. I also got the return Magicka enchant because unfortunately I'm not running a Resto Staff or Destro Staff, so I really don't have any way of gaining Magicka when in combat. But I swear, I promise you, this build is insanely good at Magicka sustainability. I've played this build for 2 days straight now, and I've never run out of Magicka in a 1v1 scenario or a 1vx or in group play. I do use spell power pots to gain that Magicka back, but to be honest, this build only has 1500 tops Magicka regen, and it's like all you need. I feel like I'm not missing out by not having Resto Staff. So yeah, I'm running Sword and Board on both bars. I don't have skill points for Resto Staff, but even then, I wouldn't sacrifice Sword and Board for Resto Staff because this is a tank spec, and as soon as somebody notices you're the healer in the group, you're gonna get focused. So maybe in a 1v1, you might want to put Resto Staff on your healing bar, and maybe take this defensive stance out for rapid regen. But I mean, in 1vx in open world group play, you really don't have time to block on your resto bar or stay on your resto bar for too long because you're taking too much incoming damage and you need to be able to block. So that's my reasoning behind double sword and shield. It's recommended for open world with this setup here. Magicka on both shields. One, because on my damage shield bar, it'll increase my damage of all my skills, and on I have the Magicka enchant on my pack shield because it'll increase my healing strength by quite a bit. So that's the armor set. We'll get into the spells and then champion points later. So for our DPS, we got our toppling charge and puncturing sweep, just like the light armor setup, and you have your radiant oppression and your dark flare. I sacrificed radiant mage light because I'm usually blocking most of the time, so I don't get stunned from stealth very often, and snipes physical damage tickles when you're in heavy armor. So I sacrificed, since I have the more survivability than my light armor setup, I sacrificed that survivability for more damage and put entropy. For 1v1, you want to replace Dark Flare for Reflective Light or Vampire's Bane. and of course you need meteor. You need some damage on this build. I don't like Nova. I feel like it got nerfed in 1.6, and Radiant Sweep is not very strong. I might as well just use Dawnbreaker or something, since it does like more damage and more DOT damage. Any kind of ultimate you have would be nice, like Soul Salt maybe too. And my tank spec, I have Proximity Detonation for more burst damage. I have Breath of Life for the group heals. I have Repentance. Like I explained before, the activation is very, very good for tanking, especially when you're out in the front line and your allies getting kills for you. You can just Repentance the dead enemies to help you tank further. Purifying Ritual is highly recommended to help you from getting Talon spammed or rooted, because you need to be mobile as a tank to keep pushing into their back line to kill their enemies, to kill your enemies. Defensive stance again, block cost reduction and block mitigation. 8% damage, to receive 8% less damage and to lose 8% less stamina is quite a big deal. Remembrance is a pretty good ultimate. I'm just using it because it's low cost. Basically when I get Meteor I'll be spamming Meteor, but if I'm in a oh shit situation and I only have a little bit of ultimate, Remembrance helps you tank longer. If you're on low stamina or low Magicka, you can use Remembrance for 4 or 5 seconds. You take less damage, it basically heals you the full, and by then you'll have replenished some resources to continue tanking further. So the way this playstyle works is you want to burst people down. You don't have very much DPS or sustained DPS, but you'd be surprised at how good Proximity Detonation, Toppling Charge, Puncturing Sweep works, or Proximity Detonation, Dark Flare, Toppling Charge, Execute. Like, if catching people by surprise makes this build very, it's a decent burst, but if you catch somebody by surprise, you'll actually get the execution. You don't need a high burst to kill people that are not expecting your incoming damage. But for like a 1v1 fight, they know what you're capable of, and you're going back and forth. Proximity Detonation will help set up a nice execution or a nice burst rotation. So yeah, that's why I would take Dark Flare out for 1v1 scenarios. You need less cast time abilities, and it'd just be really awkward casting Proximity Detonation and Dark Flare back to back. So by having one cast time spell, it's better for your PvP situation. So yeah, this build has pretty good damage. It would have more in light armor, but I sacrificed that to be far more tanky. And having the 5-piece heavy bonus makes you far more tanky. Okay, the stats. I picked 1500 stamina for a reason. I feel like that's just enough to tank a group of people long enough for my allies to arrive. If I go any more into stamina, I'm going to sacrifice my DPS, and I'd rather have more DPS than to hold block longer. I didn't want to make a block build. I wanted to make a survivable build, a very durable build. So between using sand potions and repentance, I feel like 1500 is a really good margin, and I feel like that's the way to go. I went 20k health, and I feel like 20k is pretty good. Like I said before, Snipe and Wrecking Blow does far less damage when you're in heavy armor. So I mean, I could risk having a little bit less health, but I don't know. I feel like if there's like a Dragon Leap and an Uppercut mixed into that rotation, I'd end up dropping too fast. So 20k health, around 20k health is recommended. I have 21k on this bar because I have Structured Entropy slotted. That gives you 6% more max health, including Major Sorcery. So I decided to go 20k health, 1500 stamina, 15k stamina, and 25k Magicka. I wanted to hit really hard, even though I'm in heavy armor and I'm lacking the penetration. So Mundos, I have Atronach on all my Magicka builds. I feel like magic recovery is very important, and without Atronach this build would suffer, and I'd run out of Magicka too quickly. But like I said before, I have 1544 Magicka on my Repentance bar, and that's just enough to have sustained fights and not just cast spells and run out of Magicka. I've never casted spells and said, hey, I'm out of Magicka, I need to slot a resto staff. You know what I mean? Like you can jab forever with 1400 Magicka. So yeah, I recommend these stats. Maybe if you feel like you want to tank more, you can just take points out of Magicka and put in stamina to become a really long-lasting block build. But then again, you'll lose the benefit of high-powered heals. Let's get into the champion points. Champion points are pretty important in this build. So we got 30 into Steed. I went 20 into block expertise for 8.1% block cost reduction. More spell resistance since I am running Nern. I'll benefit even more from having the spell resistance. 5% spell resistance of like 20k plus, 100% more spell resistance because I'm running 5-piece. Nern is quite a big spell resistance ramp. Plus I'm a Templar and a Brennan, so I get more spell resistance passives just by being that specific race and class. So yeah, this is pretty good. I recommend spell shield over resistance since you're blocking and crits don't do anything to you when you're blocking most of the time already. I got Hardy for decreased Magicka damage and Elemental Defender for decreased elemental damage. Like I always say before, put 10 points into something you don't want to spec too much into because the percentage ramp from 0 to 10 points is 5%. The percentage ramp from 10 to 20 points is 3.1 in this situation. So I mean, you get 5% bonus versus 3% bonus from putting 10 points into the first 10 points into a skill. So things you want but don't want to overcharge, you put 10 points into, in my opinion. And I wanted to overcharge block expertise, but the rest of my points will be going into block expertise instead of like any of the other trees. So 10 into spell shield, 10 into hardy, 10 into elemental defender. I don't use shields. I don't need healing received increase. My heals are decent. That's useless. Okay, the tower. I'm starting to overcharge Magician, so I put 15. I'm going to put more into here, as well as this is, by the way, this reduces Magicka cost, as well as Arcanist. This increases Magicka recovery. I only put 10 into Mooncalf for a 5% increased stamina recovery, and 10 into Tumbling because you do roll dodge from time to time when you're like feared and you need to roll dodge to save yourself from being executed after breaking out of the fear, and to reduce the cost of CC break is very, very important. Again, 10 points into Bless for increased healing, 10 points to Elfborn for increased healing. So this is more for the healing, crit on healing, increased crits, crit heals, because I don't have very high spell crit since I'm in heavy rather than light. So this is more for the healing crits. And spell erosion for the increased penetration. And you are lacking quite a bit of penetration, so this is quite helpful rather than running light armor. Because light armor versus light armor fight, both of your resistances are virtually dropped to 0, because light armor gives you about 4,700 spell penetration, and the guy you're fighting is probably going to have less than 4,700 spell penetration. Spell resistance. Once erosion kicks in, once your penetration on your light armor kicks in, and if you're using sharpened on your weapon, that's going to kick in. So I mean, light armor versus light armor fight, it's like overkill how bad you reduce their spell resistance. But when you're in heavy armor, this pass is far more important since you don't have many spell resistance reduction abilities or passives. So I'm going to start overcharging Thaumaturge to increase my magic damage. Thaumaturge. So, yeah, so this is going to be overcharged further, and this will just increase my overall magic damage since I already have 10 points on the things that I need. I didn't get Elemental Expert because I'm not using any elemental damage, even though Reflective Light is fire damage. It's not really worth putting anything into here when you can just overcharge magic damage on the rest of your spells. Like I said before, unfortunately this passive is located in the wrong spell tree. It's in the ritual, or the passive tree, the ritual, and the ritual benefits medium armor builds far more, so keep in mind the more points you put into the ritual, the less, the more points you have to put into Apprentice to get the actual passives you want. So I put 20 into the ritual, and I'm 20 points further away from getting Foresight, and 20 points further away from getting Arcane Well. So if I ever did have 120 blue points. I don't know if I'll sacrifice Thaumaturge just to get Arcane Well. So that's something I'll have to think about. Right now it's pretty simple. I can get this spell position and then put 20 points into the Thaumaturge because I'm too far away from Foresight. I wouldn't be able to, even if I had the 20 points from Thaumaturge into something else, I wouldn't be able to use Foresight. So that just works out well because I only have 50 blue points rather than 75. But things will change in the future. I don't know what I would do. And like I explained my Magicka build before, once again, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 champion passes dedicated to countering Magicka builds, and 1, 2, 3, 4 passes dedicated to benefiting Magicka builds. So enjoy Magicka builds now, guys, while that you can still actually hit your opponent, because in the future when people get more champion points, they'll reduce all your damage if you don't dedicate to your champion passes, if that makes sense. So spell erosion decreases your enemy spell resistance, but spell shield on the red tree increases your spell resistance, so it completely negates that. Elfborn is negated by resistant in the red tree. Elemental Expert is mitigated by Elemental Defender, and Thaumaturge is mitigated by I forgot what it's called. It's mitigated by Hardy. So in the future, when you are fighting other people with many champion points, they'll start investing into these defensive skills, and you'll start investing into the offensive skills, and it'll just be like a headbutting fight. You won't be able to DPS as much as you'd like, and that's just gonna be the downfall of Magicka builds. Then I explain that further in my light armor build. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This is my preferred Magicka build rather than my light armor. Light armor is very good still, and light armor is recommended for PvE as well. So this is more of my PvP Magicka build, and I'd strongly recommend this out of the other Templar builds, since in my opinion right now stamina Templars aren't as strong as Magicka heavies. I'd be able to wreck myself with this build over my stamina Templar. So guys, thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed and this was helpful.